What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Shane Mallory, with my co-host,
Ricky DaCosta.
And you know what time it is. It's time for...
Run It Back!
Yo, we are running it back, people. Episode 7. Before I get into the meat and details of this podcast, I just want to let you guys know, make sure you like, click, subscribe, comment on all the videos. We need you guys out here. We love the feedback. I'm actually going to get into some feedback about previous weeks right now. So if you don't mind... I'm not pushing you off the show, but I need a moment here for a second.
Take control.
I was talking with you guys pre-meeting, production, okay? And I came up with a little bit of an idea for this part. It's called Mallory's Madness, because I'm about to go on a little bit of a rant right now. All right?
Is it about the Sunday night game? Is that what it is?
Oh, it's about the Sunday night game.
Them boys?
Oh, them boys.
Them boys?
Them little boys right now. Them little boys who are in timeout probably can't have any candy or snacks for the rest of the week. Yeah. Whoa. At a bare minimum. So, I'm going to try to do this without getting loud or being disrespectful, but I was a little heated, okay? I was heated because... I want to interact with our fan base, okay? Mm-hmm. We got the nice little setup on the Instagram page. We put up the different reels. And I said my comments about Dak a couple weeks ago. A lot of Cowboys fans came on. They were very respectful, admirable. They agreed with a lot of what we said.
But?
There's some back and forth. But, Cowboy sideline, and I guess some other person, weren't particularly happy with my commentary. Now, I didn't feel like I had thrown any disrespect or anything like that out there, but... they come at me, all right, and somehow I get blocked on my own channel.
Hold on. You're telling me the Cowboy fans and haters out there blocked you on your own Instagram page?
On my own Instagram page.
Woo!
Now, here's the thing. Might be able to block me on Instagram, but you ain't blocking me on here, boys. You got to face the music. And let's just talk about that. Now, I will talk with my co-host about the game, but I just want to talk about this. I laid out my commentary about Dak and what I thought about the Cowboys. And you know what? It's funny. After 2 games this year, they almost had me. They almost had me. But it's the same old Cowboys. And I'm going to use an analogy. It's like the movies nowadays. They can't come up with anything new or original, right? Everybody talks about this new movie. Oh, it's the best movie in the theaters. Go out, see it. I go and I watch a movie. Same ending. I can predict it all the time. And that's the Cowboys in a nutshell, okay? Every year they come out. They win a couple of games against teams that, let's be honest, are either first one and dones in the playoffs or they're not even a playoff team, okay? They come out, they wow you, they put up a crazy score, and everyone's like, oh, it's the Super Bowl, it's the Super Bowl. And this is driven by their fans and their owner, unfortunately. Every year, it's Super Bowl for the Cowboys. And I get it. That's the goal. But be more realistic. You ain't winning a Super Bowl this year, and that game Sunday night is proof. That was a whooping. And you guys got mad at me for talking about Dak. Where was Dak that night? He's off laughing on the sideline while his team got shellacked 42-10. Through one pop-fly interception, I thought I was watching baseball for a second. I thought I saw a center fielder come over and catch a baseball. What are we doing? This is nothing personal to Dak, too. I have nothing against Dak. But my opinion, okay, or my comments about him a couple weeks were he's overhyped and he's overpaid relative. Someone came at me for that saying he's not even the top 10. Based on when he got that contract, I think he was 2 or 3 in the league, money-wise. Well, you're 2 or 3 in the league, right, to go and win games like Sunday night, okay? To go and beat the better teams, okay? He's had multiple great teams around him, okay? He's not top 10 in any measurable statistic, okay? And the other night, good Lord, he didn't show up. He had 1 nice touchdown throw, 3 interceptions, okay? Couldn't get going at all against that defense, okay? And listen, we've been high on the 49ers forever. I'm not going to sit here and take anything away from the 49ers. But it's the same story with the Cowboys every year. It's that new movie that came out, but I can already predict the ending. That's more or less kind of my rant right now for the week on that Sunday night. But listen, let's talk about the game.
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
Give me the moment, the defining moment for Dak Prescott. That he won the game. He brought the team back from this huge comeback. He's gotten paid all of this money.
Yep.
What is the one?
And he wants a new contract.
And he wants a new contract.
How do you get a new contract based off that game? Like, how do you get angry or mad or say anything?
So, a little statistic.
Sure.
Dak Prescott is 7 of 28.
7 and 28. Okay.
7 and 28.
Gotcha.
Right, versus playoff teams. 7-28.
Yeah.
So it brings into your point. He beats up on the weaker teams.
The Cowboys
right?
do. It's just what the Cowboys do.
But you know what? When he plays the 49ers, when he plays the Eagles, when he plays the Chiefs, all the top-end teams,
Sure.
they just don't win.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, I don't mean this as just like, I'm not trying to pile on and attack the Cowboys. We do this podcast in general to talk about as many teams as possible, appeal to as many different fan bases. But the Cowboys fan base seems to get a little bit sensitive when you come after any single thing about their team. Well, guess what? You're going to deal with it. You either don't comment on the chat then if you don't like what I have to say, or otherwise, take it in stride.
No, listen, I want to see you in the chat, all right?
I do too.
Hey, bring that smoke because you guys got punished, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important.
Partners in crime
you
right here.
show up, right? You show up when you get your butt whipped,
Yeah.
right? And guess what? We're looking for it. We want that smoke. But you know what? If you're going to block my co-host, right? Do not run. Do not hide when you get your butt whipped. Who was it? George Kittle? He was like, F Dallas?
Yeah.
Micah Parsons?
Yeah.
You seem a little personal about that?
Yeah,
Right?
I
A little
saw him on
upset
the
about
podcast
that?
coming at him.
Why didn't you do anything in the game?
Yep.
Right? And listen, hey, Micah
He
Parsons.
said, you want to make it personal. I said, actually, no, I think he was just
Listen,
being very
I
matter of
like
fact.
Micah Parsons. That's a
Right,
bad
so
boy
do I.
right there. But
So
guess
do I.
what? Like when you get your butt whipped, you then can't talk big. You can't talk big. Right?
Take the whooping, like Dion said, like a man, own it,
Own it.
pull your bootstraps up, and get ready for next week. That was a rough one.
What are you gonna do now, Dallas?
I mean, listen, Dallas, I'm not going to put the downright closure on your season. Here's what I think is going to happen with the Dallas Cowboys. And your fans, listen, and this is coming from two Giants fans. Watch your team, see what you see, take it in, and own it. We have both come to terms with the fact the Giants are not very good this year. I'm still going to watch them because they're my team, but I can admit that. You Dallas Cowboy fans, this is what's going to happen. You're sitting there and you think your team is not that good for a week. This is what's going to happen the rest of the season. They're going to win enough games to get back into the postseason, and we're going to enter the postseason with the same madness where Jerry Jones and some of the fans and many media personalities are going to be convinced that the Cowboys can still go to... How can you watch that Sunday night game? And again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Never hold one game against a team like their best or worst performance.
Absolutely.
But this is two now subpar performances for them, and that one was just bad.
So you know what? Let's dive into it, right?
Sure.
Is it Dak, right? Or is it Mike McCarthy? Who's the problem?
I think it's a combo.
You gotta pick a side. Don't be lukewarm.
So
Don't be lukewarm.
If you want
pick
me
a
to,
side.
I'll give you an honest side. I'm going to go with the side then that hasn't won a Super Bowl, and it's Dak. Mike McCarthy's at least won one Super Bowl. Now, people will sit there and say, yeah, but he had Aaron Rodgers. I get it, but they still had other successful teams even after that. And the year after, they were poised to potentially repeat. Now, our G-men came and made sure that that didn't happen, obviously. Hakeem Nicks, don't forget, all right, boy went off that game. But, yeah, I have to go with Mike McCarthy. That was Jerry Jones's pick. You know what? No. I think the larger problem with the Cowboys, and I hate to do this, because it's not like, you know, it doesn't really matter, because the guy does not, it's not like the guy's going to listen to me. He's a multimillionaire, if not billionaire. Jerry Jones, to me, is the problem with the Cowboys. Ooh. And I think this goes back to years ago in the 90s, okay? He can't admit this. But it was admitted on multiple 30 for 30s. It was admitted when Jimmy Johnson was enshrined in the Ring of Honor, the Hall of Fame. Jimmy Johnson was the architect and builder behind those Super Bowl teams in the 90s, okay? And when he and Jerry finally couldn't get along because Jerry wanted to take all the credit, Jimmy left. Now, they won one with Barry Switzer coming in, but that was still Jimmy Johnson's team. He put it together. Have they won anything since then? So I say to the Cowboys fans, and I've said this to students who are fans of the Cowboys, and I'm going to say it to you guys now, okay? You, okay, as an organization, will not win a Super Bowl as long as Jerry Jones continues to be the face of the organization, has to get interviewed like he's the head coach of the organization, and I think you talked about this before, is buying the groceries and cooking the food.
Well, I gotta disagree with you. Like,
okay.
Come on, man. After a whooping like that, you're gonna make me side with the Cowboys, right? I disagree with you, right? Now,
I didn't even pick one of your choices.
To the core of your argument,
frustration,
right? Your frustration, right? Jerry Jones, right? He wants to be the architect. He wants to have all the credit.
Just needs to be
pushed
seen.
Jimmy Johnson away.
Yeah.
That's 100% correct.
Sure.
But you know what? Jerry Jones and his son, right? They've drafted well. CeeDee Lamb, right? Zeke,
Yeah.
Dak,
Fair.
Tony Romo,
They
Michael
draft well,
Parsons.
but they don't sign well.
Listen, that's fair.
Overpaid Zeke,
guess
overpaid
what?
Dak.
From running the organization standpoint, from a roster building standpoint,
Sure.
they've done a good job.
Okay.
Now, you also
We'll talk more about that later.
We
We're going to talk more about that later.
We can get into those
Yep,
details.
yep.
But now, listen, I can't hate on Jerry for being a master marketer, a master businessman, right? Like, he's doing some great things in terms of promoting the Cowboys.
It works
promoting
because
the
they're
NFL.
always in the news. I can't say it
100%.
doesn't.
Like
yeah.
$11 billion they're worth or something
it doesn't
like that.
result in what they ultimately want, the ultimate goal.
So I think your question is all that attention a little bit cancerous, right, to their success? Or
I just think it puts a lot of pressure on them, and it seems like they always fall whenever they meet a team that's not ready to roll over.
Or do they not have the right coach? Or do they not have the right quarterback? And at the end of the day, like I mentioned before, the Dallas Cowboys miss their former offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, right?
It's a good question.
They suck in the red zone right now. They can't listen. In the 49ers game, guess what? They were perfect in the red zone because they never got there. They never got there.
It's true.
Right? So, guess what? The problem was you were scoring too much points with Kellen Moore, and now you can't even score points in the red zone.
No, it's a
right?
problem.
CeeDee Lamb is frustrated. The other wide receivers are getting frustrated. You miss Dalton Schultz, right? So, Cowboys, right? At the end of the day, there's a coaching problem. There's a quarterback problem.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, there's a Jerry problem.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And listen, I don't want to spend the whole segment on the Cowboys. Going back to the fans, okay, people that come on the Instagram stream, Cowboys fans, we welcome the back and forth, okay? I want to interact with you guys, but don't be getting mad trying to shadow ban me on my own Instagram live channel, okay, when I'm trying to interact with our fans.
Can I just say, I won't even lie, that is actually pretty funny.
I mean, it was
like,
hilarious
how do you
because I'm trying
block
to type
someone
comments.
from their own Instagram?
I didn't think it was possible.
Like,
I didn't think it was possible. I
hey,
kept
you guys
trying
are
to comment.
creative, right? Like that. Hey, listen.
I'll give them that.
Hey, we want to see you in the comments.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Want to see you back and come back with the smoke. We can always have the back and forth, but I mean, you got to come back like a man, just like we have every time the Giants have lost, and say, you know what? At least for right now, it looks like you were right, okay? Because Dak's not measuring up to anything that's close to the top 10, and the Cowboys team has not one, but two pretty embarrassing losses so far in the year. So how about we go to another game? Well, first of all, 49ers just keep balling out. That team looks like a wrecking ball.
You know who's not a game manager? Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy, man. Boy
Right.
can play. That boy can play.
He can play. Leading the league in QBR.
He is leading the league in QBR.
He doesn't make mistakes.
I see you doing some
I
reading.
picked up a few stats, right? Leading the league in QBR.
Yep.
When he starts the game and finishes the game, he wins.
Yeah.
Right? You want to know a dirty little secret that I think?
What do you got?
I think the 49ers can go undefeated if they beat the Philadelphia Eagles.
I
Look out for it. They got the Bengals and they got the Eagles on their schedule, right? If
can
they
get through
win
those
those
two
two
games,
games,
yeah.
they might go undefeated for the season. For the season.
Listen, you text me last week about that, and I was like, no team's going to go undefeated. After watching what they did to the Cowboys, I was like, wow, they might actually have a shot. Now, those division games sometimes could get a little hairy. You don't know what's happening late in the season. The 49ers might, shut it down because they've got their position solidified. But yeah, right now it doesn't look like anybody is going to be up to the challenge of beating that. I mean, them and the Eagles, they're on a collision course right now. I can't wait for that game.
They are.
Speaking of which, let's talk about the other undefeated team, the Eagles, 5-0 versus the Rams. I'll let you lead off here. What'd you think about that game?
So, listen, first and foremost, I'm going to not talk about the Eagles for a second. Hey,
Okay.
Cooper Kupp, glad to have you back.
Yes.
Right? You were
Great
doing
to
the
see
damn
him.
thing.
Picked up right where he left
8
off.
receptions, 120-plus yards,
Yep.
115 yards.
Yep.
So, shout out to Cooper Kupp. Glad to have you back. You're a beast.
And letting my boy Puka Nacua get some red zone love now, too, all of a sudden.
Yeah, opening up.
Yeah,
right?
man.
Got talent on the field.
Watch out for the Rams, man. I think they're going to be a problem
Yeah,
this year.
listen, I thought they were going to be tanking for for Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the case.
Sure.
That defense, somehow that secondary is playing very well.
It
which
is.
Extremely impressive.
It
We got to
is.
give the coaching staff credit for that one, right?
Improve the offensive line.
Improve the
Secondary is
offensive
playing
line.
well.
They
A lot
can
of young
identify weapons. The
playmakers.
running
Yes.
back.
Yep.
Kyron
Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua.
Nacua.
And they have even the other young running back who got a couple of carries 2 weeks ago. I want to say his name is Ronnie Rivers. They got some
talent.
young, talented skill players.
Absolutely, they got some talent. Now, Philly, you're doing the damn thing, Philly.
They are.
Right, so shout out to Philly. They're winning ugly.
They
right?
are.
They're winning ugly.
But they can
right?
move anybody.
They've lost their offensive coordinator. They've lost their defensive coordinator.
Sure.
And they're slowly muddling their way through
Yep.
and winning ugly, which is impressive. Very impressive.
Yep.
Jalen Hurts, he's not a one-hit wonder.
No,
right?
man.
Through 5 games,
He wins ball games. Like
does.
he wins ball games. He can run the ball well. He's improved as a thrower too as well.
significantly.
Yes,
Significantly.
Like he is a true leader. Like right now, if we were going back to like our ranking list, I would say Jalen Hurts has to be in your top 5 quarterbacks, just because now he's showing you it wasn't just a 1-year hit.
Yeah.
Right? He is a player. The guy knows how to lead his teams to victory. And it's funny. I think the score of that game was 23-14.
23-14,
So it wasn't like a crazy score. But I felt like the Eagles dominated and controlled almost the entire game from the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
I mean, they can just pretty much line up with almost anybody and push them around the field.
Yeah, we got to give that defensive line some credit.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Jalen Carter showed up in that game.
Got a sack, I believe, in that
got a
game,
sack,
too.
Really dominated. Their defensive tackle from the prior year, Jordan.
Jordan Davis.
Jordan
Two
Davis.
Georgia guys.
Yep, 2 Georgia guys.
Yep.
Hey, that whole team is, that's Philly, Georgia, or Georgia, Philly, right?
You want to talk about drafting, trading? I mean, they are doing. We're going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, get into Howie Roseman and the things that he's been doing. But listen, shout out to Philly, right?
Guys are balling.
100%. You got the right coach. You got the right quarterback. You're in the right organization. Good
And
ownership.
DeAndre Swift, man, looking like Barry Sanders behind that offensive line.
Yeah, he's
third
healthy.
in the league in rushing yards right now, and he's healthy. He is healthy.
So keep it up. That's a big deal. But they got depth at running back. They
Dallas
got
Goedert woke up this week too.
That was nice to see. The tight ends were getting some love.
It was
right
it was.
Because you know what, AJ Brown's been dominating.
Yeah,
you yell at quarterback.
Dominated early. Then AJ Brown came in. It's nice to finally see Goddard.
Hey, Devontae Smith, where are you though, man? Like, listen, you got
him in fantasy. I got him in one of my leagues too.
Listen, I had him in a little parlay.
Yeah.
I just needed 25 yards. He got 5. He got 5, ladies and gentlemen. 5.
He started off the year
hey,
on fire.
Hey, Jalen Hurts, can you spread the love a little bit? Right? Can Devontae Smith get some love? Dallas Goedert got a little bit of love. I mean,
keep feeding Goddard.
Come on.
Feed the tight end.
Hey, 25 yards, Jalen. That's all we're asking for, right?
Yeah.
But listen, shout out to Philly. You guys are really doing well. I hate to say it within the division and all that type of stuff. But when you look at
it's the second best team in the NFL to me right now.
Second best team. When you look at how well the 49ers are, right? When you look at how bad the Cowboys are showing up in big spots, quietly and looking ugly, right? The Eagles are doing the damn thing.
They just keep winning games.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
just keep winning games. And again, if I was comparing the two teams, I said second best team because I just, right now with the 49ers, maybe Diamador Lenore, the secondary player, he's like a little, I think he's the one who gave up the touchdown to Turbin against the Cowboys. But I see more holes in the Eagles secondary right now.
Yeah.
But from an upfront perspective, I cannot wait to watch those teams play and go at it because that's just going to be knockdown, drag out, in your face, line of scrimmage type football. And you want to see who the best line of scrimmage team is in the NFL. I love watching those battles.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, it's going to be a dogfight. I think that game is in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. That
might be the game of the year.
That might be for the conference.
Yeah,
the way it's looking
agree.
right now, that might be for number one seed in the conference. Absolutely. For sure. Okay. Another game that I had a vested interest in too, and we split on this. Cardinals versus the Bengals. Don't shut the curtain on the Bengals yet, guys. Don't. Hear me out here. They're 2-3 right now, and you and I talked about this.
Joey B.
We thought, Joey Cool, baby. Joey Cool. He looked good. Healthiest he's looked all year. But we were very high on the AFC North. Right now, it seems like it's anybody's division right now. It's kind of wide open. Not performing quite to the level that I would have thought. But with the Bengals, you're 2-3 right now. We'll go through the picks of their upcoming game this coming week. But if they win this game and they get to 3-3, they got their bye week coming up. That's another week for them to all get healthy. They probably sit T. Higgins, I would assume, again this week. Give him the extra time to get healthy. You're 3-3 going right into your bye. I mean, they're primed for a nice little. This is kind of just part of who they are. The Bengals kind of start off season slow, but then once they get it going, they get it going. And I mean, my man 7-Eleven is always open. Jamar Chase, what you think about that?
Listen, hey, throw that man the ball. Throw that man the ball. He was in line, always open. 3 touchdowns, 190 plus yards.
I'm always
15 receptions,
Yep.
broke a franchise record.
Yep.
Listen, I was highly impressed.
3 TDs.
Hey, listen, shout out to Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
25 carries. It wasn't pretty, but you know what? It was necessary. It gave Joey B a little bit of a break.
Yep.
And you know what? The defense is chugging along.
Yep.
Right?
Making enough plays to win them some games.
If they beat the teams that they're supposed to,
Yep.
and they stay healthy,
Sure.
they just might come back and be competitive in this.
And it seems like the rest of the division is getting a little banged up too as well. So, I mean, maybe the Bengals just kind of went through their early struggles. And you and I talk about this all the time. It's a long season.
It
a
is.
lot can happen. Like a week ago, I was sitting there thinking I might, have the Bills going to the Super Bowl. And after this Sunday, I'm like, ooh, the injuries, it's just crazy how 1 week can almost change your view and perceptions on everything in the league, with the exception of the 49ers and the Eagles. Because right now, nothing is shaking my perception.
Whoa. Don't forget about Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm not
They
saying
might not be winning pretty. They might not be
Very
putting up
similar to the
30,
Eagles.
40 points. But guess what? They're going to be there at the end of the day.
Yep.
They're going to win the division. And guess what? You got to go through Kansas City in the AFC. In my opinion.
I totally agree with you. It's the Arrowhead Invitational. All right?
Yeah.
It's the Arrowhead Invitational, okay? Can't take credit for that. All respect to Mr. Nick Wright, who, by the way, I watch
That's
his
your
show.
guy, man.
I love
That's
Nick
your
Wright.
guy.
I watch his podcast. I also watch, I think, the best still, because not as many people watch like network cable and sports shows like they used to. It's becoming a podcast world. But I think the best sports show is First Things First, which is Nick Wright, Chris Broussard, and Kevin Wildes. I think they have great chemistry. But if I'm going to go after Nick Wright for any take, it's his take on the Cowboys from the beginning of the season. And he had to hear it. He had to hear it on Monday from all those guys. So it was funny to watch. But jump off that Cowboys pick, Nick. It's not too late. Bills, Jags.
Ooh, listen, a lot of injuries.
We both were hesitant on our picks last week about that game.
I wish I stayed with my conviction and picked the Jags, but I didn't want to seem like a Bills hater.
Yep.
I wanted to give them the credit and respect that was due, and they didn't show up. And that was a more costly game. That was a very costly
It
loss.
was, because you just tied yourself with the Dolphins.
You tied with the Dolphins. You, what's it called? You lost Tre'Davious White.
Tre'Davious White, the linebacker.
Milano, right? You also lost him. So those are two of their best defensive
Getting
players.
some injuries,
right?
suffering some heavy injuries.
Now, if all of a sudden they have to play shootouts, right? What will Josh Allen?
And he didn't play bad, Josh Allen.
He didn't. There's no shade here on Josh Allen. Ultimately, there's a lot of jet lag. They were playing at.
You could see it in the first
9:30.
half.
You absolutely.
They looked like they were sleepwalking through the first half of that game.
100%.
Just everything just a touch slow, just off. Rhythmically, everything, they just seemed off. And it showed by the score. Wasn't it like 11-0 at some point?
Towards the end of the second quarter.
Second quarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and again, the Jags, I don't make excuses for teams, right? But I do think that is a tremendous advantage when you've been there now already a week.
Yeah.
Your bodies have acclimated to the time change, you're practicing, you're just used to it. Whereas the Bills, again, they just got there. So they were even talking about making that some team is going to do that every year, spend 2 weeks out in London.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a show earlier in the radio, and they were like, if you're the Jags, why wouldn't you just sign up for that? You're already very used to it, and it seems you just got 2 wins out of it.
Yeah, I think their owner is from Europe, and I think they're trying to lead the way. You know, in the
whole international spreading love, getting more fans involved
across the
world.
world.
They had the game. Was it last year or 2 years ago? They had that game in Mexico City too, as well.
Yep.
So I mean, they're and then there was a game I believe in Germany. So they're branching out. They're branching out. They're trying to get, and that's great.
But here's what I like about the Jags, right? They lost a little bit early, but they're slowly starting to progress, getting together.
I agree.
Calvin Ridley.
Defense starting to round into form. They shut the Bills' run game.
Shut down the Bills' run game. Calvin Ridley, 6 receptions, over 100+ yards.
ETN
finally showed up. 26 carries, 120+ yards, 2 touchdowns. Right, so all of a sudden, right, they're progressing in the right direction.
Sure.
So I like the direction that they're moving. They are healthy. Trevor Lawrence didn't make a ton of mistakes.
He did 2 fumbles, but I mean, he did what he had to. He made crucial plays at crucial times to win them the game.
And that division is going to be interesting with the Texans and
it is. They're a little feisty. The Colts. Like, who saw this coming with the Colts?
Yeah.
Zaire Franklin, their linebacker, that man is a monster, dude. That guy is a tackling machine. Shut the Titans deep.
Jonathan Taylor is coming back this week.
But I mean, looking at Zach Moss, who needs him? Jesus, Zach Moss went off this week. I know. Listen, I'm a Taylor guy. But
shout out to Taylor getting paid 3 years, $42 million.
Good for him.
Deserved.
Good for him. You know, it's like to see some running backs starting to get their money, earn some contracts. It's nice, but you're seeing the money is starting to go down. And another thing with the roster construction thing in our second segment, but 3-year deal, right?
3-year deal.
I think you're going to start to see that become more the norm with running backs now too, as well. And
it really should.
And it's kind of nice for both sides, right? Because 3 years, the team can evaluate whether it's something that they want to, sink more money in. But you, as the running back now, 3 years, so you're still kind of in your prime when you can come up for a new number, as opposed to most of these guys on these rookie deals. They're on 5-year deals. If you pick up the 5th-year option, by that 5th year, some teams are already looking at you like you're damaged goods, you know? So,
and listen, you talk about you talk about rookie deals, right? And stuff like that. That just makes me think about the Jets, man, right? Zach Wilson, he's 3 years in, right? Garrett Wilson, he's in his 2nd year.
Yeah.
And that Jets
the Hackett Bowl game, the Nathaniel Hackett Bowl.
Yo, Sean Payton, what happened? What happened, Sean Payton? Your team didn't back you up, right? Russ, he played okay, right?
Yeah,
not terrible.
Russ
Had the mistakes at the end.
Well this year, but
where's that defense? But guess what? The Jets showed up. They rallied around Nathaniel Hackett, and it was super impressive. Breece Hall, woo!
Get that man the ball.
Give him the ball.
Get that man the ball.
Exactly.
Well, I think they're starting to lift the limitations on him. I think they were trying to go early. They said, no, it's time to go.
Give it to him 20, 30 times a game.
Yeah.
And listen, let Dalvin Cook get a little bit of love as well. But, no, listen, the Jets were impressive. And
that's a playoff defense. That is a playoff defense to me.
It is. They're giving up a little bit too much points, and I'd love, right, for them with the defensive coach. But ultimately,
I think it's the relationship, too, though. If the offense is struggling, the defense gets on the field more, So sometimes statistics, we use them as like a measure to see how well teams are doing.
Yeah.
But they can be misleading. If you're a great defense, but you have an offense that can't sustain long drives, okay? They keep going 3 and outs, or they're not staying on the field. Mm-hmm. Your defense is on the field more, and you've pointed this out to me all the time. They're going to get tired over the course of a game. They're going to give up.
I'll give you that. Listen, Zach Wilson, he's throwing the ball to the tight end, right? He's getting the ball to his playmakers.
This is Conklin, right?
Right, Conklin.
He went for a beastly gain in that game.
I was impressed. I was impressed. Guess what? They beat up on a bad team, right? And if you want a shot at making the playoffs, that is what you're supposed to do. So ultimately, there's not going to be a huge fire sale in New York with the Jets, and Zach Wilson continues to impress. But Denver is a dumpster fire, right?
It's a mess.
100%. And it's a different mess from the Cowboys. Lacking leadership. But they got offensive talent on offense.
They do. And Russ is not playing. Like, Russ is actually playing fairly well.
Yeah.
Top 5 in QBR, top 5 in touchdown passes. So it's not... I think the problem with him, though, is like he comes out, and I said this a couple weeks ago, he comes out really sharp early in most of these games, but he can't make those necessary plays late in the game to go and win ball games. And that's why sometimes QBR can be a little bit of a misleading statistic, because you have Russ and Herbert. Now, I like Herbert, and I think Herbert's awesome. But at the same time, they have these good QBRs, but why aren't the teams indicative of, good quarterback play?
Yeah.
But listen, I was happy as heck for the Jets, especially with Peyton spouting off of the mouth. And listen, maybe the recipe for them is, we got to put our defense in the best position to keep us in the game and win ugly, right? They're not the only team that's going to be doing that this year.
Defense and run the ball, and they might be able to win a few games.
Yeah, so listen, that wraps it up for the first segment, but don't go anywhere, okay? We're going to be right back after the short break, and we got a new couple of topics for you coming in the second segment when we come right back on Run It Back. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's the second segment of Run It Back. And we got a new couple of fun topics we want to sit here and dive into a little bit.
All right, let's mix it up.
So, like that 49ers-Cowboys game really got me thinking.
Okay.
And the primary thought process I was going through is roster construction in today's NFL. Everybody's obviously trying to accumulate or amass as much talent on a team and depth as possible. But the way it's been done for so long, right, is you pay the quarterback maximum amount of money, and then you're kind of handicap someone with what you can do around them. You can only pay X amount of players.
Sure.
Especially
Hard
when
salary cap, yeah.
Especially when you pay the quarterback, because the quarterback is the most valuable, most important, and most expensive position. But that game got me thinking. I'm looking at the Cowboys. They've got a quarterback. I don't know where his contract ranks right now. I know that when he signed it, it was top 3, top 2 in the league. All right? But, and you alluded to this before. The Cowboys overall have built a nice roster around. I would like again, when you look at the offense side, they've got one good running back. They've got one good receiver. They don't have a ton of other weapons. Their O-line was good, but it's starting to age out a little bit. They are getting old. So again, you get somewhat stuck. Like they had to get rid of Zeke too because of all the money that they needed to sink into other players. Guys like Micah are going to come up really soon too as well. But then you look at the 49ers across, and you've got guys like Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Nick Bosa, CMC, Arik Armstead, Ayuk, Debo Samuel, who just got a major contract, Kittle. I mean, the depth and talent. Trent Williams. The depth and talent on that team is insane. And I think they went about it a little bit of a different way. They built their roster and they said, we'll build, and it's not like they haven't taken their chances on quarterbacks, but it's been very plug and play at the position. They've got their one draft pick who's already now in Dallas, in Trey Lance. That was their try to get the first round quarterback to finish the piece. But even before that, they plugged Jimmy Garoppolo in. They made it to a Super Bowl, okay? They were multiple-time playoff teams, too, when Garoppolo was still there, and they were mixing around with other quarterbacks. I think C.J. Beathard was their starting quarterback at one point, and they still were able to make their way to a playoffs. Now they have Brock Purdy, who's a 7th-round draft pick who cost them almost nothing. So they're able to sign all this talent around, and it just starts to make me wonder, and I'm curious your thoughts. Is it necessarily still the way of the NFL? You got to go, and I'm not saying they have what could potentially be their franchise quarterback, but do you have to go and break the bank on your franchise quarterback if you're not 100% sure? And when you look at somebody like Purdy, like I don't know when he's going to be due up for money.
I think he's 2 more years.
So 2 more years. So that kind of ties into the negotiation processes too as well, because when he gets there, and a lot can happen within 2 years, what does it say? Like, do the 49ers approach it and go, listen, you're very good, obviously. You perform well. And if there's a Super Bowl on the table, all bets are off.
Oh, pay that man.
Yeah, you have to pay him. But if there isn't, let's just say they're consistently good. We're not even going to predict the future. Part of the negotiating ploy for the 49ers is, listen, you're really good. We love what you've been for our team. But look at everything that's around you, too, as well. Like, it's not... The only reason that we've had this sustained success is because we've been able to put this around you. We pay you a lot. We have to start going get rid of some things. So I wanted to ask you, what's your thought on like optimal roster construction, like how people are doing things? Do you think that maybe taking a little bit of a change, maybe people will start to take some pages out of 49ers?
Listen, I wish that's the case because I think it's there's 2 things going on, right? If you have a top 5 quarterback,
sure,
right? If you have Patrick Mahomes, if you have Jalen Hurts, right? These difference makers, where you can pay them a lot of money and they're still going to be able to elevate the team through passing touchdowns, through running the football, playmaking, right? Then it 100% makes sense to continue to do it. Find that guy, build around him. And pay, However, you start to look at teams like the Dolphins, right, and all the weapons that they have. You start to look at the 49ers and all the weapons that they have. Prior to them paying Jalen Hurts, the Eagles,
I was going to say that,
loaded on every single level.
And their contracts don't hit at the same time, so they can pay Jalen, and it's not all hitting the same year.
And it's a mix of veterans that are on their way out, right, and a lot of young guys to learn behind them and replace. So they've completely replaced their defensive line. Offensive line, you know, they still got some work to do, right? So there's some issues there. But defensive line, they've replaced their defensive line. You know, they lost Hargrave. He went to the 49ers.
Boy, did he.
Yeah. So when you start to look at those things, I also look at teams like the Atlanta Falcons. They're a quarterback away.
They got to do something. But their defense is actually playing really well this year.
Defense is playing well. So then that leads me to the Cowboys, right? You're going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb. You're gonna have to pay Micah Parsons. Right.
And Dak is coming up too now.
Listen, Cowboy fans, I'm gonna say this, and I'm a believer of this, especially with the Giants as well. you know what? You have to move on from Dak Prescott.
I agree.
You have to move on from Dak Prescott. You can't afford to pay him, $50-60 million
Not with games like that on Sunday night. You just can't do it.
And no big moments to show for it.
Yep.
Right? So I think the new way of the NFL is to, find your premier receiver. Find
your edge rusher. Find your left tackle.
Edge rusher, your left tackle. Have two really good running backs, right? A thunder and lightning scenario. Solidify your offensive line.
Sure.
And then have young, talented defensive players, and then I think that's how you make a run for it. That's what Atlanta's doing. Let's take a look at the Lions. The Lions focus on their offensive line.
They did.
Right? They drafted agent.
That might be the third best
Michigan.
offensive line in the league.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And guess what? Jared Goff, he's not getting hit. He has plenty of time to throw.
Great.
They have one huge weapon in St. Brown, right? They drafted Williams out of Alabama, right? Sam Laporta, he's looking like a stud.
He looks like a stud.
Right?
He looks like a stud.
So now you start to look at that team. They have all the core positions taken care of, but they didn't waste all of their draft picks on offensive line. They didn't waste all of their picks on wide receivers, right? So it has to, I think at the end of the day, you have to draft the best possible player. You can't draft on need. And ultimately, either you are in position to draft a quarterback, and if he's a top 5 quarterback and he's up to be paid, you keep him. If not, if he's a middle of the road quarterback, you got to pivot, right, and start all over at that position or bring in a veteran.
Yep.
Look at the Colts right now. They got Gardner Minshew. They're winning.
They are.
Right? Because they have a talented defense. They have some talent on offense. And guess what? They're winning games. So they'll be middle of the road, right, because they have adequate quarterback play. But if they hit on Richardson,
competitive. Like the Falcons have been in every game that they've played so far. They're competing in all these games.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's the difference between Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins? Right? Because Kirk Cousins is only making
He plays
35.
for Jerry Jones, and as you pointed out, Jerry Jones is a better marketer. Everybody looks at Dak because he's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. So they're like, oh, he's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, and they've had winning records the past couple of years, so he's got to be a top 10 quarterback. I'm sorry. I don't see it, and I've never seen it. And again, I challenge people to go up and look up these statistics too as well. For all the years that he's thrown for like a lot of yards, all the games that he's thrown for a lot of yards, how many of those were meaningful yards? And what I mean by that is
they were behind.
Shannon Sharp used to always say it. It's called empty calories. You're throwing for yards and touchdowns when your team has already lost a game, but you're just doing it to make it, you're going through the motions, making it look like, padding the stats, making it look like you're still trying to compete. Yeah. But like in actual games where he needs to go up and throw up a big spot, he hasn't done it. You pointed out to his record against playoff teams too. 7-28. 7-28. How are you going to pay that guy top of the market quarterback money?
You can't. He's not a difference maker.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. You look at Purdy from the 49ers. He doesn't make the mistakes.
He doesn't.
Right? People can argue that he's a game manager. He's throwing the ball down.
I think Sunday night shows you he's more than just that, too.
100%.
Knows how to get the ball into the hands of the playmakers. He's
making
accurate.
Quick decisions, right? And guess what? His team believes in him, right? His leadership ability after one short season is pretty impressive.
100%.
Versus Dak Prescott has been in the league 8 years. Does his defense believe in him? Does his owner believe in him? Right?
I mean, what's that trade? That trade for Trey Lance tells me something. That tells me that Jerry Jones is basically sitting there, Dak.
I might need to pivot.
Listen, you're on borrowed time, my man. Like, I paid you the first time. You're getting older. And here's the thing that hurts Dak, too, now as well. When he first came in the league, he had some mobility. He could run a little bit right now. It seems that he has clearly lost that mobility. He is a pocket quarterback now, and he hasn't shown that ability to be a great
Has he lost that ability, or he doesn't want to run and get hurt again because it's time to get paid?
I mean, listen, that's a great point, too, as well. That could be it, too. Well, look at Russ. But Russ then got paid, and now Russ is actually starting to run someone again, and it's good to see. But that's part of their skill set. That's part of what made them
Russ
special.
already got paid.
He did.
Right?
Did.
Like
so now he's starting to run a little bit more.
Listen, Russell Wilson, his reputation opportunity to get into the Hall of Fame is being questioned, right? Because of how bad he's looked.
Yeah.
The difference with Dak is he's trying to get that third contract, right? That second big contract, and so that could be leading into his decision making. Now they're not winning. All of a sudden, he shouldn't get another a $50+
not on
million
that
deal.
high scale.
Again, maybe a performance deal, but again, if I am the Dallas Cowboys, do I want Dak or Micah Parsons? Do I want Dak or CeeDee Lamb? That's what you're going to have to ask yourself. You just paid
Diggs.
And
a lot of teams have to start doing that.
Am
I sold on this guy?
You just paid Diggs, right? You're going to have to pay Micah Parsons. And you're going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb. Right? You can't afford to have those three and Dak Prescott.
Pollard could be coming up in a little bit too.
They franchise tagged him.
So he's going to be
deal.
He's going to be coming up too as well.
What do you do at running back? Your offensive line is getting old. So when you start to look at roster construction, this is why the Philadelphia Eagles are so impressive, because they have the wide receivers, they have a veteran tight end, they have a ton of depth at running back. Their defensive line, like we talked about,
and offensive line, right there with the Niners.
100%. So their linebackers are adequate, right? Secondaries, they got some veteran players. So all of a sudden,
that's probably the one place if they had to go. But that's all they have to do. Okay, so we'll just go into the draft next year. A bunch of teams are going to be scrambling for quarterbacks and this and that. There's going to be good secondary players to be had for them to go and grab because they've constructed their team this way.
100%.
And it goes to the larger point of where, yes, quarterback is obviously the most important position. Like, you have to have that position figured out, okay? Because you got to have somebody that at bare minimum is not going to lose you games. But the 49ers, the Eagles, the Lions. I'm trying to think of another team off the top of my head who's got a great offensive and defensive line. But those three, too, right alone. Okay?
Absolutely.
They're showing you draft at the line of scrimmage. If you are not sold on quarterbacks in the draft there.
But look at this, right? Look at the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They had Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
Boy, do they miss him now. But you know what? They won the Super Bowl. They traded him, got 2 first-round picks and other draft picks.
Sure.
They drafted young, talented defensive players.
And look at them now, one of the best defenses in the league.
One of the best defenses in the league. So they pivoted and got younger on defense. Sure. They got veteran offensive linemen to protect Patrick Mahomes.
100%.
Now, the question is, they're lacking a little bit at receiver. Hopefully their wide receiver talent, they get a little bit mature and they really step up. But that's where the question is. They got Pacheco, so the running back seems to be solidified.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right, so you could see it in different ways, right, where some teams have went a little bit more offensive. But in this particular case, the Kansas City Chiefs, they got rid of one of the best wide receivers to make the rest of the team better.
And won a Super Bowl. So it goes to show you again, building, they went and built on the other side of the ball too. They have a bunch of first and second year players, so their defense is young. Absolutely. They're controllable. They're not expensive. So that, like, one way or another, teams have to figure out that recipe of don't draft a quarterback if you're not 100% sold on him, and then don't just go sign someone just to say you're signing someone.
Well, don't pay him all that money. Don't pay him $45-50 million, right?
Well, these teams have to learn how to negotiate too with these quarterbacks too as well. This is why I owe it. Like, if I'm Jerry Jones and I sit there at the table with Dak, I'm just like, listen, Dak, we like you, and you're probably a top 15 quarterback in the league.
We'll give him that respect.
I'll give him that, of course. But I'm not paying you top 5 quarterback money or top 3 quarterback money for not top 5, top 3 results.
Absolutely.
To me, it's just really simple. If you're not getting me to the Super Bowl, or at least, let me draw it back just a little bit, because while the goal is the Super Bowl, let's just say a conference championship at least. If you are not at least getting me to a conference championship, how can I break the bank to pay you?
You can't.
I don't understand.
I can argue, right, you trade Dak, and then you pick up Kirk Cousins next year, right? He's going to be a free agent.
The Vikings might trade him right now.
They might trade him right now. So you might get comparable play. Yes, it's going to be a 1 or 2 year deal and situation. But those are the type of decisions you're going to have to make. And guess what? There's going to be a lot of those types of decisions coming up with the trade deadline in 3 weeks.
Yes. Well, look at the Vikings. I love that we just naturally touched on them because, okay, so Jefferson now just goes to the IR.
He's out 4 weeks.
He can't come back, I think they said, until week 10 at a minimum. Mm-hmm. All right? So, and if he still feels good. It's a hamstring injury, so you know how those things can linger too. They're 1-4. They're not performing very well right now. Kirk Cousins' deal is about to expire. I think this is his last year. Daniel Hunter, who's a beast, by the way. I mean, they've got some players. Start thinking, like, if you're the Vikings if I'm their head coach, if I'm their GM, I'm starting to think, okay, we got to make a serious pivot here right now.
Well,
we
let
just
me say
lost
this.
our best player.
I don't think the coach can do that, but the general manager can.
But like somebody like Bill, for an example, now he has a little bit more equity. He's basically the head coach and the GM.
Absolutely.
But I think usually those two
that needs
work
to
together.
separate. Yeah, that needs.
I agree.
Hey, Bill, give up that GM hat because if
agree.
I'm not mistaken, he's only drafted 2 Pro Bowl players in the last 12 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Right, which is unbelievable when you take out Tom drafted.
Yeah.
So that's incredible.
He's not good at drafting the offensive skill position.
Not at all. Not at all.
Even through the course of his coaching tenure, he's never been a talent, but he had something to kind of mask some of those things and make a lot of players look better than they were, and that was one.
When you have the greatest of all time at quarterback.
Exactly.
Exactly. But I start to think, right, so, granted, Kirk Cousins has a no-trade clause, but, like, if I'm him, I want to get out there. But I think some of these teams, right, some of these general managers have to ask themselves, and if I am the New York Giants, I have to ask myself this question: are we closer to Caleb Williams, right, or the playoffs / the NFC Championship game?
Yep.
And for me, and we're talking about roster construction and resetting the money, right, this is an opportunity that you can trade a Daniel Jones, trade a Kirk Cousins, right? And I'm not saying officially to tank, right? But if all of a sudden you get rid of some of your talented players, right, and play your young guys, see what you have, right? Let them gain some experience, and then bring in some more young talent, pair them with some veteran talent, reset your salary cap, and make targeted shorter deals, right? So then you could be competitive. But in this year, we know that there are 2 solid quarterbacks that could potentially change your franchise and become...
Could be more, but
right?
at least 2.
At least 2.
At least 2.
And could potentially become top 5 caliber quarterbacks. And so if I am the Bears, if I am the Vikings, if I am the Giants, if I am the Denver Broncos, these are like honest questions that I have to ask myself, right? Are we closer to the playoffs or Caleb Williams? And if that's the case, you're going to have to start to sell off parts, increase your draft capital. Maybe you can even bring in some young talent from the other team. But you, as a general manager and an owner, you have to be thinking that way at this point. If you wait until the last minute, it might be too late, and one of those other teams might make some trades, and now you've lost some of your capital. So for me, it's first to the race.
So again, a lot of these organizations, I have to imagine, okay, because I'm just thinking about me as a high school coach, the way our staff sit down and we kind of progress and we map out the season, we look at matchups. I'm sure a lot of these organizations do it collectively too as well. And to your point, you have to start looking. That 5 or 6 week mark, look, are you closer to here or are you closer to here? And if you're closer to here, let's just say here is drafting a high level prospect. You need to start looking at your valuable assets, especially if they're in that 27 to 29 years old range. What can I send? Where can I send this player to go back and bring me assets? Whether it's a young player, whether it's draft picks. That, to me, is the key in today's NFL roster construction. Get your hands on as many draft picks as possible, because you're increasing your odds.
Yes, but you want enough teams to be able to trade with. So the benefit of considering to trade now is that you have some teams middle of the road.
Hey, this player might get us over the hump. This player might get us the wild card or the division.
That team that's 3-2, 2-3,
and they're a receiver, a running back, an edge rusher, or something, a linebacker away.
Exactly. Look at the Bills, right? The Bills just lost at linebacker. They lost at
secondary.
In their secondary. That's a team that's going to be buying. Right?
It could be probably bargain shopping, but
100%. I would be on the phone if I am with the Bills. I would be on the phone with the Atlanta Falcons. Right? Could you trade a Justin Fields? Could you trade a Daniel Jones? Right? Could you trade a Kirk Cousins?
I don't know what you do for Daniel Jones right now. Maybe a bag of Swedish fish.
Listen, if we get rid of the $40 million, right?
Sorry, I don't mean any disrespect. I am a Giants fan.
He said it.
Daniel Jones, it's not even anything personal to you. Because I don't think you are the whole problem. The offensive line has not been good at all this year. But he hasn't been the solution either.
All I heard is that he's not worth a bag of candies. That's what I heard.
I'm just kidding. Can we take it back? Let's go back
No,
30
we're
seconds.
not ready. No, we're not running that back. All right? But listen, ultimately, I think those are the opportunities that are out there, right? And so if I am, any of those teams, if I'm the Saints, if I am some of the AFC teams as well, when you look at
stay with your young players.
Well, first of all, look at the entire AFC North, right? A trade might be the huge separating factor with them.
Sure.
So I would be looking at all those things if I am any of those teams.
Well, so you mentioned a few different teams, and I'll show you one other team that I think you and I both have more or less agreed on this. The Raiders got a win the other week, but the Raiders still as an organization over the past 10 years, they've been a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
You've got an absolute stud. Stud in Max Crosby. And I think he's about 27.
No, not Max. Trade
Jimmy G?
No, Adams.
Oh, Devontae Adams?
That's what I would be doing. But go ahead. Finish your point.
No, so listen. Max Crosby or Devontae Adams. You're probably not making the playoffs this year if you're the Raiders, okay? You drafted a young quarterback who just got his first start in Aiden O'Connell. Needs some more time to develop, but you need to go and see. Well, get younger around him and start trying to piece this thing together. Well, how do you get younger? You get draft picks. How do you get draft picks? Trade valuable players that command draft picks back. If you traded Devontae Adams right now, still not even 30 years old, you're getting a first-round draft pick back for a player like Devontae Adams. You might even get it for somebody like a Crosby simply because he's an edge rusher.
I want to keep Crosby, right? He's about 26, 27 years old.
I got you. And it's hard to find great edge rushers. Yeah.
Right? And guess what? Listen, to me, this is so important in football, right? Those players that have heart, you have to keep on your team.
Because they're great for your culture.
Right? They're great
especially
for your
if you're trying to bring in a bunch of young players. I hear you.
Right? Devontae Adams, he just moved in. He's not a Raider, right?
You.
So you could ship him out. But Crosby, hey, hold on to him, build around him.
And I'm not one to get rid of edge rushers either, too. I know the value.
But I think you could get a haul in this offensive league for a Devontae Adams. Again, you bring up teams like the Bills. You bring up teams like the Chiefs. I know it's crazy to trade within your divisions, but I would ask for even that much more to make that
Cowboys and Eagles did it a couple years ago.
Hey,
worked out great for the Eagles.
You bring up a team. If I'm the Cowboys, wouldn't I want a Devontae Adams, right? Make a push at the playoffs,
Wouldn't be bad.
That's the type of opportunity.
I just don't know what they could trade to get him. The Cowboys are kind of like
now if I'm Jerry Jones, I want the big name, I want the star, I would want Devontae Adams on that team, right? Because you pair him with CeeDee Lamb, you figure out the money later. And guess what?
CeeDee Lamb becomes your number 2.
He becomes your number 2, and he might become a better performer.
Sure.
And guess what? Don't be surprised if a team like the 49ers move heaven and earth for a move like that. Right? Do they need a receiver? Absolutely not. But guess what? If they think they could afford him and he would be a difference maker while you don't have to pay Brock Purdy, I would go over the salary cap and in debt for that type of move and opportunity.
Well, it's funny. You just hit on the other side of it. It's one thing when you're the rebuilding team. Trade away whatever valuable players you still have. And I'm talking more so if they're, I said before, that 27 to 29 range, because they're already getting into that arc where they want to go play somewhere and be competitive for the last parts of their career. So get the younger players back. But on the flip side, you're somebody like the 49ers or a good team that is competing. If you feel like this is your year to go and win the Super Bowl, you do anything, okay, and everything necessary to make sure that comes to fruition.
Here's a great example.
Make the moves.
They just traded for CMC, and that looks like a steal.
Oh.
If I'm not mistaken, it was a second and 2 third round.
People were like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like,
"Gave away too much." Now they look unstoppable.
Yeah.
Right. So
he looks like the best offensive player in the league.
If a superstar like that came available again, why not go after that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're that team, again, all the teams are in different scenarios, and it's tough because if you're that team who's 3-2, 2-3, you're kind of still meddling. You want to see things play out.
Yeah.
But the problem is, the later you get into the season, for one, there's no trade deadline. The trades are gone after the end of October. So some of these teams, Giants, Vikings, maybe the Falcons, Bears, Raiders, you have to start already thinking and planning for next year. The Panthers too are another one. And the Panthers might have a head start because they might have their quarterback.
They don't have their draft pick though. They traded it to the Bears.
All the more reason. Trade a guy like a Burns or some of the valuable guys in defense. You might end up with the worst record in the league. trade whatever you can to get picks to go and now build around your young quarterback. I'm not saying Bryce Young's the guy yet either, but
you brought up an interesting fact. Like if I'm the Denver Broncos, if I am the Las Vegas Raiders, do I need to beat my other competitive team right to the bottom so that I can have Caleb and he doesn't go there?
Sure.
That's something that as an organization you have to think about. If you're not going to make the decision to get him, but you allow your competitive divisional opponent to get him, then you're gonna. Who wants to be stuck facing Patrick Mahomes for the next 10, 15 years?
I mean, yeah, especially when over time he's gonna. It's only a matter of time before the Chiefs figure something out with their receivers too. I think Rashee Rice. I've heard this from actually a lot of different players' reports. They talk about how complicated the Andy Reid system and the offense is, especially for young receivers. So a lot of times it takes them a year, right, to kind of gel, get comfortable, and really be comfortable with all the route trees in the system. Because they have so much pre-snap motion and all this kind of stuff. So it's a lot to know.
And that's taking over the league right now.
Yeah, it is.
All that pre-snap motion.
It's
Look
so
at the Jets.
That stat the other day, the top 3 teams in pre-snap motion are the Dolphins, the 49ers, and the Chiefs. And look at, those are 3 of the best teams in the NFL right now. So, yeah, I mean, again, you really have to, as a team, as a GM, as an organization, you really have to do the due diligence and assess where you are at critical juncture of the season, but especially in October with the trade deadline.
I think it's about making the hard decision and knowing when to pivot. And right, so one credit I will give Bill Belichick: he always got rid of a player 1 year early. Right, so that he got maximum value. I think ultimately, as a general manager and a GM, you have to make that same type of decision where you're going to have to pivot and say, hey, you know what? Like, I got to race to the bottom so I can try to get the number 1 overall pick. And guess what? Even if you don't get the number 1 overall pick and you can't get Caleb Williams and you don't get the second pick, guess what? You know, Marvin Harrison Jr. is not a slouch, right? Look at the Bengals. They had the 5th overall pick.
Bears might be drafting him.
Fair, but look at the Bengals. With the 5th overall pick, they got Jamar Chase.
I know.
Right? So now they should have drafted an offensive line.
Do your homework, do your scouting.
But Burrow, what did he want? He wanted his boy. And look at the magic that they have.
And the thing about that, too, is I feel like you can get good offensive linemen in the middle of the first round, in the later part of the first round.
Free agency.
Heck, you can get them in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round. Like, linemen are definitely something you can find more. But to your point earlier, BPA, get your draft picks and draft the best player available. Amass talent.
On offense first.
You think offense first?
I think offense.
See, I'm a
first.
defensive guy.
Listen, I love defense. I agree, but I'm a realist, and at the end of the day, you want the offensive talent first. Solidify your offensive line. You need at least 2 big play receivers.
I like the O in the D line.
Look at the Miami Dolphins. Their receiving core, their running backs, the amount of depth that they have. Again, look at the Eagles. Right? They went out. They got AJ Brown. They drafted Devontae Smith. They got Dallas Goedert. They have 2 or 3 running backs, right? You look at the 49ers, because a part of it too is these are the teams you have to compete against, right? So you have to start to build your team in preparation to go against all of that depth.
I hear you. Well, that's why to me depth is so important. And again, you can never go wrong building at the offensive and defensive line, because when all else fails, even if you don't have the skill or quarterbacks, you control the line of scrimmage. You are controlling a portion of the game, so you will always be able to compete in situations like that. So listen, great segment. That's all the time we have for segment number 2. But don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with the 3rd and final segment. You know what time it is. It's picks. And I know we haven't seen the hat yet, but it's coming. We'll be right back. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's the 3rd and final segment of Run It Back. And before we get into our picks, all right, we got to go through a little stud of the week action. But before we even do that, I just want to make sure I say this. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on all our major platforms. We can't do this without you guys. We're growing fast, but we want to keep growing. We want to keep interacting with you guys. So like, subscribe, comment on all the available platforms. We really appreciate it.
Spotify, YouTube, Instagram. We're
TikTok too as well. You said YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Is there any others? I think we have them all, right? All right. So anyway, going right before the picks, we got stud of the week. You want to go first?
You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
So listen, it was a great offensive week, right? You know, you have A.J. Brown. He did well. You have Cooper Kupp, honorable mention. You have Tyreek Hill. You have H.N. Sorry for getting hurt, my guy. But you know what? I got to give it to 7-Eleven. He's open.
I'm always open.
Day long.
That was the quote of the weekend.
Jamar Chase, 15 catches, over 190 yards, and 3 tutties. Right?
Tutties. Sounding
Give
like the kids.
that man the ball.
That is
right?
anything but, as the kids would say, low-key mid. That's a high-key week right there.
So, but no, he's my stud of the week. The Bengals impressed. They got their offensive together.
I told you, don't Joey B. Yet. They might be able to figure this out.
The most important thing, I saw Joey B move around the pocket.
Took a couple of runs. Yep.
Right? So, with that, T. Higgins is hurt, and Jamar Chase did all of that. So, all of a sudden, Jamar Chase, stud of the week. Those Bengals are dangerous. Right? You thought they were a wounded animal, but those are some of the, dangerous creatures out there. So, Jamar Chase, stud of the week, doing the damn thing. Be careful. He might just do it again.
Yeah, man. Listen, I can't hate on that. And it's funny that you mentioned a receiver because my honorable mention for stud of the week, DJ Moore. Okay? 8 receptions, 230 yards, 3 TDs. The boy went off. Okay? He was off. So, DJ Moore, man, keep that up.
Hey, and he did that against Washington, and he played at Maryland.
Hey, there you go, man. So, but he's my honorable mention. But my stud of the week, a lot of chatter about this guy early on. Game manager, he's just not making mistakes. His job is to just not losing the game.
Yo, them boys are not gonna like you, man.
But them boys, I got me some Brock Purdy because that was Purdy on Sunday night. The way that boy played. 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, damn near a perfect QBR, and might I mention too right now, that puts him in top 5 for touchdown passes for the year, and leading the league in QBR. Guys, if you're just a game manager, you don't put up these kind of numbers and statistics. The man is delivering the ball on time, accurately, in the face of the blitz, getting it into the hands of the playmakers, running that offense at a level that I haven't seen any quarterback in recent years run that offense, because they've had a few different. My man's Brock Purdy. The man is legit. Easily a top 10 quarterback right now.
I can't argue with that. He's done it consistently enough. And again, I've said this several times. When he starts and finishes the game, they win. His heart, his leadership, his ability to run the offense, his ability to process. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He's not mobile. But you know what? He gets the ball out quickly. He gets it to the right place.
Processes the game so fast,
does not make the mistake.
It's the key part. Yeah. Key part. He's got no interceptions this year. So, the guy is he is balling.
Absolutely.
But now we get into our pick segment, and you don't see it. Oh, no, it's right here. Hey, guys.
Just burning the hat already, man.
Another week, another win. Valiant effort, my man. It was closer this week. But again, Mallory with Mallory's Madness takes the week at 9-5, okay? Valiant effort by Mr. DaCosta going 7-7. Only 2 games off. This brings the career or the season total so far. Mallory at a whopping 49-29. That's 20 games over 500. Just wanted to make sure in case you didn't.
Ladies and gentlemen, he can add.
Yes, I can. You know what? A lot of my friends who've seen me in math classes in the past know that I struggle with it, so it's important that you point that out to me. And Mr. DaCosta is doing fine, with his 44-34 record. He's only 5 games back in the win column, but he's got some work to do. So we'll see if he can make up some ground as we start this pick segment. But you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, best of luck to you.
I'm smelling a little comeback here, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I don't know if you're going to get it on this pick because I think we're going to split right here. But, we're not going to split. We've got Denver at Kansas City leading off the Thursday night game.
Listen, there's no surprise here. This is going to be a get-right game for Kansas City. I think they're going to really test out their offensive weapons. I think Pacheco is going to have a big day. So,
I do too. Denver's worst rush defense in the league.
Yeah, this one won't be close. 31-17, Kansas City Chiefs.
I like Kansas City too as well. I think their offense is slowly starting to round into form. They're figuring out their identity.
Do you think we're going to get a sighting of the Swifties?
Oh, I mean... I've run out of different song titles to make a corny joke out of. So I'm sorry, Taylor Swift. I do like your music. I just don't know a lot of it. I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of an old head when it comes to music.
Oh, so you're not 21 again?
I'm not 21. I'm not 21 again. Oh man. I might have to walk off the set after that joke. Jesus. Goodness gracious. But I like.
Listen, I don't know the songs either. All right, but
I knew the two.
I heard of that
Shake
one.
It Off and Bad Blood. Those are the two I knew. I like Kansas City as well too, though. Like I said, better defense. They've got a running back who's really rounding into form right now. Denver is a mess. They're a dumpster fire. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a little closer than you said, just because they are a division rival. They do know each other somewhat. But Denver's defense is just so shot right now. They're like KC. I'll say like 31-24. Maybe Denver scores like a late touchdown to make it look a little closer. Next game is Baltimore at Tennessee. This is a tough game to call. Who you got?
International game. Listen.
That's right.
The Baltimore Ravens dropped everything. A wild thing I heard over this weekend, their wide receiver coach was making them catch the ball with a rugby ball, which is significantly bigger than a football. So I thought that was interesting, and most of the catches went through their hands. So I think they're going to make that correction. I think they're going to focus on, catching smaller items so that they catch the ball more accurately. Bates dropped a touchdown. Aguilar dropped a touchdown. Andrews dropped a touchdown.
Yeah.
They should have blown out the Steelers, but you know what?
It looked like Lamar had a worse game than he actually had.
100%. He needed some help.
I had to go back and watch it, too.
So I'm on the Ravens. It's going to be a close game. Field goal game. 24-21. Baltimore Ravens.
You like anyone fantasy-wise of that? Like Lamar obviously is always kind of a...
It's international. I do think Lamar will probably step up his game. I think he'll run more. He was let down and disappointed by his teammates, so I think he'll step up. So I think Lamar will probably have the best game.
All right, so I think coming up... This is an interesting game just because Tennessee, outside of that one playoff game where Lamar just went off and finally figured out how to beat them, Tennessee has definitely had Lamar's number in the past. They give him problems. Vrabel's a great coach, especially defensive scheme-wise. He seems to have the scheme to figure out Lamar. But the Ravens' offense is just a little bit different this year, and I just don't trust Tennessee right now. It's too much of like Jekyll and Hyde. Like 1 week they're okay, 1 week they're not. It just seems too back and forth. So I'm gonna go with Baltimore too as well. Okay. I like Lamar in that game. The other running back, it's not the Gus Bus, but the other guy.
Gus Edwards and Justice.
Is it Justice Hill?
I think it's Justice Hill.
Yeah, so Justice Hill had a decent game for them too as well. Yep. I think this is a low-scoring game. I don't really love it fantasy-wise for either, although Hopkins had a pretty big game last week, so he might catch a decent amount. He seems to be their one valuable receiver, so he might be a guy you want to look at. But I like Baltimore, and I think this is a low-scoring game. I'll say 2019 Baltimore.
All right.
Okay, so now we've got Washington at Atlanta.
Where are you going with this?
It's an interesting game. So it's Washington at Atlanta, 1 o'clock. I think I'll go... It's tough just watching. I think I'm going to go Atlanta.
Okay.
I'm going to go Atlanta. I like the way their defense is playing right now. I like them at home, too, as well. They seem to have a good ability to control the clock in these games. Washington, very similar to Tennessee, a little bit too much Jekyll and Hyde. Started the season off very hot. Since the defense seems to have had tremendous amount of struggles. Mm-hmm. I love me some Bijan. Always going to go with the hook 'em horns guy. Let's see if Desmond Ridder can kind of... He actually had a decent game this past week.
He did.
So maybe Desmond Ridder's figured something out, getting the ball in the hands of his playmakers, and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, because they both had pretty good games. Yeah, I like Atlanta in this game. And I like Bijan. I like Pitts. I like London. Ridder, you got to show me again. I don't know if I would start him in fantasy. But yeah, I like him. In terms of Washington... I like Robinson. Okay. That's about it.
Okay. So for me, I'm going with the Commanders this game. Okay. They played on Thursday night, so they got 10 days worth of rest. Yeah, they got embarrassed on national television, right? They got their butts whipped. Again, at this point, there's not a lot of difference between Ridder and Sam Howell, but what Sam Howell has proven to me is that he can throw the rock. And so I think the Commanders are going to be pissed off. I think they're going to play hard. I think they're going to play well. I think the Falcons...
Both 2-3 right now, right?
Yes.
I think they're both 2-3.
Well, no, the Falcons are 3-1.
3-1, I'm sorry.
The Commanders are 2-3. So Ron Rivers fighting for his job, offensive coordinator.
Well, the Falcons came off a bye.
No, the Falcons came off of beating the Texans.
Oh,
so they're coming off of a high. So this is a game that I think, the Falcons just beat Ritter with a field goal, beat the Texans, right? And C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, you're right. So do they have a bye then the week prior? Because they have one less game. Because if one's 2-3, right, and the other you said was
that's 5 games,
so
the Commanders are 2-3.
Yes,
and then the Falcons are 3-2. So both
3-2. Okay, I misheard you. I apologize.
So I'm on the Commanders.
All righty. Next one, Minnesota at Chicago. Who you got?
I got the Bears.
You got the Bears?
I got the Bears. No Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins has talked about being traded. Now you got to rely on your rookie Addison. I think he's a really good future wide receiver.
Sure.
But this is going to be his first time.
He had a good game last game too. Yeah.
He had a good game, but he's always had a good game as a number 2.
Yeah. Now he's a number 1.
This is the game he's going to be at number 1.
Yep.
You don't have Dalvin Cook anymore.
He's good, but he's not Jefferson.
So, you know what? I think I just don't like the Vikings in this spot. The Bears are hungry. Justin Fields has something to prove. I think that coaching staff wants to win. Why? Because they have the Panthers pick in their back pocket. So I'm going with the Bears at home to win this game.
I like Chicago, too, as well. I think Fields goes off. If you have him in fantasy, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You got to start him. I also like DJ Moore coming off that big game. I expect him to have another big game. Vikings are one of the worst defenses in the league. It's starting to look like they're going to start to maybe do fire sale and sell off some parts. I just don't. I think it's a high-scoring game because I don't think either of the defenses are great. But, yeah, I see Chicago taking this one. But, I mean, if you've got players from either side, Addison, start them. I think this is going to be a high-scoring one. So.
Absolutely.
Seattle at Cincinnati. Want me to go first?
Sure. I could guess.
Hey, that's fine. Listen, I picked them last week. I think it's starting to turn itself around. They need this game a little bit more, and they're at home. I liked what I saw out of my man, Joey Cool Burrow. Now, it's funny. One of my high school kids that I actually work out with, he's a wrestler, said, not liking that Joey Cool Burrow name. It's like kind of corny. Apparently, the nickname for Joe Burrow, I didn't know this, is Joe Shiesty. This is something that goes back to like college. I don't know. But I mean, see, I got production nodding in the back. So he seems to know it too as well. So I mean, we'll
Joey
see.
B. That's what I call him.
Joey B, Joey Cool, Joey Shiesty. I mean, put up or shut up this week, my man. And you talked about Joe Mixon before in terms of both fantasy and then just for your team. He's not going to light it up. He might not score touchdowns, but the man can take 25 to 30 touches a game. He's durable. He's reliable. And it helps take a little bit of pressure off of Joe Burrow.
11 to 15 fantasy points a week.
He's pretty much a walking, 10 to 15 points a week. He's always a good start. I like him. 7-Eleven, I think, is going to be open again this weekend. So, I mean, let's go to the store. Let's get our Slurpees. Maybe a couple Slurpees. That's euphemism for tutties, guys. All right, touchdowns. I like Cincinnati in this game.
Listen, I can't disagree. 7-Eleven, Jamar Chase, I think he's going to go off again. Seattle has a young secondary. They can hit. They can play the run. I question how well they're going to be able to cover Jamar Chase. Listen, he's going to want to do it again.
Sure.
Right? He just went off. He wants to get paid. And so I think Jamar Chase is going to go off. I see a big game from him. And so I think the Bengals are going to win a close game, 27-24.
I see a good game as well. Yeah, I see a good game as well. A little back and forth.
Yeah. Field goal game.
This next one, I do think he's going to be a little bit more competitive than people think on the surface, but I mean, this is our squad. We both enrolling them. San Francisco at Cleveland.
San Francisco at Cleveland. Ooh.
I mean, listen, I'll go San Fran. The one thing I'll say is Cleveland does have a good defense. Watson's playing, right?
He didn't play last week. Interesting. They said he cleared with the trainers, but didn't play. So expecting him to play this week.
Okay. So I do expect with Cleveland's defense, which is very stalwart, they're tough, they're solid, especially against the run. I think they could put up somewhat of a fight, at least early on in the game, really making San Francisco like earn their drives. But I just think San Francisco has too much talent. They're the better team. They're the better coach team. I like San Fran, and I do think this is more on the lower scoring side, but you got CMC. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Obviously, you're starting them. Ayuk and Debo, it almost seems like take turns. Since Kittle went off this week, I'd say one of those two guys is probably going to have a big week.
Let's do it,
Debo, I'd love it. I have you in one of my leagues, too. But I like San Fran.
Hey, you nailed it on the head, right? So I'm with the 49ers. They're coming off of a big win, so they might feel good about this particular game.
Maybe a little.
But the reason why I don't think there'll be a big letdown, I think the 49ers are about the bigger picture. I think it's about business for them.
Team
and
on a
see
mission.
that a team on a mission, 100%. So they're going to come in, I agree, it's going to be close early, and then they pull away because I don't think the Browns are going to be able to keep up with the 49ers from a scoring perspective.
Unless Watson plays out of his mind, which we just
so I see a game
expect.
like 24-10.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw it as something like similar, 24-10, 24-13-ish type game, something like that. This is another fairly easy one, doesn't really need a lot of analysis. Carolina at Miami.
Ooh. I've been impressed with Carolina's secondary and their defense. Yeah. Right? They've been in the game.
The offense starting to score a little bit.
You know,
Bryce Young has first really good game.
Looks rejuvenated.
Yeah.
So, but listen,
young kid Mingo had about 5 receptions this past week too. So.
But this game is going to be too much for them. It's in Miami, tough place to play. Granted, Carolina is also a warm city, but the Dolphins win this one, pretty easily in a 28-17 type of game.
Yeah, so I like the Dolphins too as well. You got any of those? Although I will say Achan, I always feel like I'm messing up the pronunciation. I've heard it a few different ways. I hope I'm getting it right. He's hurt, at least out multiple weeks. They still have Mostert, obviously. They got Waddle. They got Tyreek. McDaniel's one of the best young head coaching play callers in the league. So I like them to figure it out. I do think Carolina can put up some points in this game, though. Miami's defense is showing it can give up some points. I'll say Miami 30-17.
Okay.
Yeah, 30-17. Here's a good game. This is an interesting game. Division rivalry right here. The Indianapolis Colts go back to their home. They're back in Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Where are you going with this?
It's a tough one, but I like Jacksonville. I like Jacksonville based on just their experience. I think that win against the Bills, they figured something out defensively, which is going to be important against Indy because Indy runs the ball pretty well. Zach Moss right now tore it up last week. He was in my head for a potential stud of the week bid too as well. They just brought back Jonathan Taylor, so expect them to go run heavy early. It'll be interesting to see who plays Richardson or Minshew because I know Richardson went out that game. I don't know the full diagnosis on his injury. But I like Jacksonville. Combination of their defense. ETN seems to be rounding into form. Start him if you have him. Lawrence is starting to figure out like his weapons he likes to. He's spreading the ball out. Kirk's getting love. Ridley's getting love. Zay Jones, too, I believe, had a touchdown in that game as well.
He did.
So, I mean, Jacksonville seems to, it's early, but they're starting to round into form to figure it out. Seems like, Big Ben in London, helped them get their groove back. So, yeah, I like Jacksonville.
You like Jacksonville?
But I do think this is a competitive game. I'll go like 27-24.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's a competitive game. I do.
Very, very disrespectful to the defenses there. I'm gonna disagree.
I'm
professionally.
He's got to make up ground, America.
I do got to make a little bit of ground. I do think this is an opportunity. The Jacksonville Jaguars are coming off of a huge win against the Bills, so they're feeling good. The Colts have been winning ugly, right? A lot of effort. It's a huge divisional game, right? I think the Colts are going to be prepared. I think the Colts realize they're better than they expected, right? And
Zaire Franklin's a monster. Their linebacker. Shout out to that guy, man. Leading the league in tackles right now. He was an animal on Sunday against the Titans.
Now, one of the things that we saw this past week, right, was Devontae Adams against the Green Bay Packers, right? A little bit of a revenge game, okay?
Oh,
and
I see where you're going.
I think, right, and we saw that in a couple other games.
Yep.
I think this is going to be another one of those opportunities where Gardner Minshew is going back to the Jags.
Okay.
And so his team is going to have a little extra oomph.
All right.
So
the motivation factor.
Agreed. I think this is going to be a tight one, 21-17, the Colts.
Colts. Like I said, America, he's just doing this because he's got to make up ground. 5 games, you know.
Hey, I'm not afraid to pick a dog, all right?
New Orleans at Houston.
Ooh.
New Orleans at Houston.
This is a toss-up.
I'll give you the lead off here. I let off on the last one. We'll try to go back and forth like that.
So I'm going with the Saints here.
Okay.
Even though C.J. Stroud has been extremely impressive.
He has.
I think that Saints secondary is very good, and I think they will limit his passing yards. I think they're going to be able to contain the running game. So I'm going with the Saints in this one.
I like the Saints as well, simply because of their defense. I think their defense is just going to be suffocating.
Now, did you make that pick because I made that pick?
No.
Are you sure?
No. Listen, I definitely debated.
As long as I go first, you just have to agree.
I just like the Saints from an experience and defensive factor, especially with Kamara back now too as well. They're coming off of a great game against the Patriots. Obviously, they shut them down. I think that defense is, again, similar to the Jets. I think it's a playoff defense. I think they have enough weapons on the offensive side of the ball where Derek Carr, just figure it out, spread it out a little bit, trust your running game. I just like the experience. So I'll take New Orleans.
Okay.
Houston they're good. They're young and they're emerging, but they're still young. And I don't know if their defense is going to be able to necessarily stand up to all the playmakers that the Saints have. I like Olave. There's that other young kid too, and I always feel like I mix him up with it. Sheen, right? Yeah,
Rasheen, something like that.
Yeah, I want to say it's like Rasheen Saheed, but then there's another player on the Bills that has like a similar name.
Yeah.
So I could be mixing him up, but he's very good too as well.
Speedster.
Taysom Hill seems to finally aging out. They don't seem to be using him quite the same.
No.
But we'll see. He's always good for one big breakout game. New England at Las Vegas.
Ooh.
Hey, there's a little bit of McDaniels against the old team.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
It's a tough one because I don't trust the coaching and the organization of Vegas, but New England is just
a disaster.
It's just a disaster right now.
So you going with Bill Belichick or you going with Matt Crosby?
Man, I wish I gave you the lead on this one. Nah, I'm just kidding. You know what? I'm gonna go with Vegas. I'm going to go with Vegas just because I think even though coaching to me matters, and this is a sport where it matters more than anything, I just think right now, New England, they just can't score points with these other teams.
Yeah.
And while Garoppolo is prone to, you know what? Nah, I'm going to pick a dog. I'm switching it, America. It's my upset pick of the weekend. I'm going to go with New England just because I watched Jimmy Garoppolo. I watched him get sacked a ton in that game, and I feel like if there's anyone who can come up with a game plan, he had Jimmy Garoppolo on his roster.
I almost had
Bill Belichick is going to come up with a game plan to frustrate the Raiders, get after Jimmy G, and I like the Patriots in an upset. I don't really like anybody in fantasy. I think this is going to be an ugly game.
I was going with the Patriots, America. I was praying he was going to take the Raiders. Again, I think the Patriots are in a desperate spot.
Yeah.
I think Bill Belichick knows Josh McDaniels, and so he knows Jimmy G. Even though the Patriots are a little banged up, I think this is an opportunity for them to get right. Bill Belichick suffered the 2 worst losses in his career.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be extra motivated, and so I'm going with the Patriots.
Alrighty. You get the lead off right here. Arizona at the Rams.
Come on. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. We're going with the Rams all day, every day.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rams too. Arizona's been playing tough, but I like Rams. I like the Rams roster more. I like their coach more. Not that I have any disrespect to the Cardinals coach, but it's
I think it's going to be a good game. If I was betting this game, I'd probably take the points, right? I think it's going to be close.
James Conner out right too in this game.
You know what? You're right. James Conner
is out.
They put
so that's
him
a big
on
loss.
IR. That is going to be a big loss.
That's a big loss.
Yeah, you're right there.
But I like the Rams too as well. I think Kyron Williams has a good game. I think Puka and Cooper Kupp light it up like they kind of, I can't say they've been doing because it was Kupp's first game back, but Puka has, obviously. They got weapons, I like the Rams.
Okay.
So, 2 guys. Philadelphia at New York. Ooh, that's not really hard for me. I'll go right away. Philly.
I'm going with the Jets. I'm
going with the Jets?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not America.
I was about to say.
No, I'm not America. Hey, Philly, you're doing
That's not the way to pick up games,
yeah,
brother.
no, listen, Philly, you're doing the damn thing, right? So I think, even though I think it's going to be a little it's going to be a competitive game.
Jets defense will frustrate them, maybe.
Them. I think they're going to slow them down. Sauce Gardner will slow down one of those receivers. So, but again, I think the Eagles are too good. I think they sneak by, and I think this is going to be a 24-21 type of game.
Okay. I like this game that we're about to pick. And I like Philly, too, as well, by the way. Don't want to spend too much time on it. Obviously, I think the Jets' defense is respectable, but I just think Philly is going to be too much for them at the end of the day. The weapons on the outside, they'll find ways to make plays. I like Philly. This to me might be game of the week. Detroit at Tampa Bay.
Ooh.
Detroit at Tampa Bay.
Are you a believer in the Lions, or you're a believer in Tampa Bay?
I think both teams. I think both teams are very good. I think
4-1 versus 3-1.
4-1 versus 3-1 because who came off the bye? Tampa, right? Tampa had the bye last week.
Yes, Tampa did have a bye.
Okay, so this is an interesting game. It's at Tampa. I really like both teams. I'm going to go Tampa. All right.
Oh.
And listen, I am a Lions believer. I'm not like sitting there trying to put anything down on them, but I think they're on a real high right now. They're 4-1, and they're clearly the class of that division. But I like the way Tampa Bay is playing, and I like the way they're playing at home. I expect them to protect home field, stay serve. I expect them to surprise the Lions a little bit. I think this is a lower scoring game. I'm going to go... I'll go 24-21, Tampa. Pulls it out in the end.
Well, I'm on the lines on this one. David Montgomery.
I'm giving you a shot here.
St. Brown.
St. Brown didn't play this last game either,
True.
too. So.
I'm expecting him back.
They got weapons.
Sam Laporta. I'm on the lines with this one.
Yeah. All right. Not much time on this one. New York Giants at Buffalo Bills. Okay.
Bills.
I'm a Giants fan, but sorry, guys. I got to take the Bills. I take the Bills, and I'm sorry. Based on what I've seen, why would I not think that it's a substantial victory by the Bills? Mm-hmm. I mean, so if you got guys on the Bills, obviously they're major guys. Davis,
Diggs Allen, is going to have a big game.
Diggs is a walking, big game. Finally, this or Detroit Tampa Bay could be game of the week, but this game could also. Dallas at Los Angeles.
Are you going to continue to hate them boys? Right? Are you? You see the bounce back here, or what's going on?
This is the battle of the ineptitudes because I don't trust either organization or coaching staffs long term. I just think they're both just kind of a mess.
So who are you going with, dumb or dumber?
Dumber. You're so funny. I'm gonna go. You know what? Give the Cowboys fans a reason to come at me, so I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Oh!
Chargers seem to have figured something out the last couple of games. Their offense is putting up points. Herbert is playing extremely well. I like the Chargers in a shootout, though. I'll go 38-31.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
All right, go do your get right. Do your get right.
Listen, I'm on the freaking Chargers again, America. I was trying to lead them to the Cowboy fans. Listen, Justin Herbert, I think he's going to light him up. Kellen Moore, revenge game. Dak Prescott hasn't proven he could score touchdowns. Mike McCarthy, I don't think he's the man. Even though the Dallas Cowboys got beat down in this particular game, I think Mike Parson is going to show up. Okay. But I am on the Los Angeles Chargers at home, primetime game. I think Justin Herbert is going to light it up, throw for 400 yards. I do agree it's a high-scoring game, 35-28 Chargers.
Listen, love it, my man. Always fun doing the show with you. I'm Shane Mallor with my co-host,
Ricky DaCosta.
And we will see you next week when we
run it back.